We're back with a Fox News alert. Iran has canceled today's nuclear talks with the U.S. as their war with Israel intensifies. President Trump is still hopeful a deal can be reached, but is warning the world about a nuclear Iran.
Look, it's very simple, not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Other than that, I want them to be successful. I want them to be tremendous. We'll help them be successful. We'll trade with them. We'll do whatever is necessary.
Let's go to Griff Jenkins at the touchscreen to break down the Iranian nuclear threat currently.
Yeah, Dr. Siegel, very active, and we can show you here in just the last 24 hours, there have been at least 80 strikes in Iran, and you can see here in the capital of Tehran. Now, they did hit Natanz, which is their signature nuclear facility, but also here in the northwest, Dr. Siegel, they struck areas that Ambassador Danan told us really were striking at these ballistic missiles. They weren't aware that so many would rain down, causing casualties there. So while the initial strikes were geared towards striking the nuclear and energy components, they are now trying to strike the airfields and where they believe these missiles are coming from. But let's get to the real threat, as you mentioned, and that is the nuclear capabilities. As I mentioned, Natanz here, that's the main one. That's the one that Israel struck last year. But you also have Isfahan. Now, Isfahan is very significant because it not only houses the smartest of their nuclear scientists, if you will, but they also have a conversion program there that would be the thing that made it an actual nuclear warhead. And Bibi Netanyahu telling our Brett Baird that the strike there really was important in terms of trying to eliminate the threat. Of course, you have in Tehran down here, this is Iran's only nuclear plant. They struck that as well. And here in what is known as the Arak nuclear hard water reactor. That's significant because that cools the heavy water, and that's used to build a byproduct, which is plutonium. And this one right here, I want to show you this one. Fordo. You're going to hear a lot about Fordo. That is a secretly built against the UN regulations. They violated the UN regulations back in 2007, building that nuclear facility. That's under a mountain, and that's the one that Israel doesn't have bunker busters that the U.S. have to reach it. That's why so many people are talking now about whether will the U.S. get involved and help strike Fordo. Otherwise, it could remain. So it obviously has eliminated a lot of the threat, but until they get rid of things like that, it's not fully eliminated. Now, why did Israel strike Iran? Well, the answer lies in the technology we're learning from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. They say this is how close Iran was from producing a nuclear warhead. 2 to 3 days, 1 weapon. 1 month, 11. Keep coming down, you get to 4 or 5 months, you're talking about more than 21, 22 weapons. That is why Israel is saying that the world was done a favor by their strike, because this is a danger not only for Israel, but the entire world, to include the United States. Now, let's talk about what Iran did in the years that put Israel at such a disadvantage. It's a ring of fire with their proxies. You have Hezbollah, you have Hamas, you're right in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah here, Iraqi Shia militants. And then, of course, down here, you have other militants, Bahrainis. You've got the Houthis that we've talked so much about. And you can see that Israel right here heavily invested. Iran invested very heavily in all of these proxies to do the attacking. That's part of why Israel finally said they could no longer wait, because while they were in a disadvantage with a multi-front war, they had to go for the head of the snake. Finally, let's talk about the threat to the U.S. You can see about 40,000 U.S. service members stationed around. We have bases, U.S. bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in the UAE. We have forces all in here, to include in Syria. That is why we are concerned now as this escalates, and why President Trump is talking about, we hope a deal is near, but he's made it very clear that the full weight and force of the U.S. will be directed towards Iran should Iran choose to go after one of our U.S. service members. That's where things stand. And, you know, that's why, Dr. Siegel, the next 24 to 48 hours at the G7, we'll see exactly what other world leaders are talking about, because France, Italy, Germany, these are countries that also are at risk when you consider really the threat that existed and the question of whether the U.S. is drawn into it.
Quick question, follow-up, great report. Mowing the lawn here, getting rid of the advisors, getting rid of the people in charge, getting rid of the infrastructure, but you still mentioned that nuclear reactor. How difficult would it be for Iran to go back if we liquidate the threat and start all over from their nuclear power?
Well, that's a great question, and Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to answer that question. We don't exactly know. I'm sure the president, and, you know, when you're sitting in the Situation Room, you probably can answer a much closer, accurate answer to that question. But ultimately, what we know now is that Iran's nuclear program has been crippled, set back. I'm not sure what the correct adjective is, but I think you all have to assume that it's not over. And they could restart it. To what capabilities? We just don't know, and that's what makes this so terrifying.
Taylor, you have some quick thoughts on this? About right now, there's by the way, IDF just said there's another assault right now.
Well, only again that I think Trump going to the Middle East now looks so smart in trying to get our allies together to isolate Iran. And Griff may know more about this than I do, but the fact that the Israelis were able to use Syrian airspace, the way that Hezbollah in Beirut had said, we're out of this fight, that actually really helps to isolate Iran a little bit more than maybe we thought.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.